Hello all and welcome to the Mug Life DIY. I am Julia and I am so excited to bring you some fun spring crafts. So if you can't find the purple Dollar Tree truck, well, look no further. I'm going to show you how you can make your very own, and I'm just going to be using the Christmas red truck from the Dollar Tree, and this is actually I've had for a couple of years in my stash that I just found when I was unpacking and moving stuff. So I'm going to sand down and scrape off all of that glitter. Now this worked best if I did a combination of sanding using my straight razor and my heat gun. Doing all three of those things, I got all of the glitter off and it worked great. I began painting my Christmas truck with my first coat of purple paint. This was a mid-tone purple, and I painted everything except for the wheels. I did, let's say, pretty much the whole thing, just one coat. Made sure I painted on all of the sides, the corners, the edges, just didn't paint the wheels. Now, after my first coat dried, I just painted on the body of my truck this was a shimmer color, and I just really wanted a little bit of shimmer to happen on the body section. So I painted it just on that midsection and re-glued the fender that came off, and then I began painting my black tires. Now, for my trucks, I do paint a little bit further into the actual wheel so that the rim is my bottle cap. So if you didn't want to do that, you wouldn't have to, but since I like to do my little hubcaps, gives it a little bit of dimension, you will have to paint a little bit inside of that gray circle. And then after my tires were dry, I glued down my little bottle caps. Now, if you're not familiar with any of my truck crates and more truck crafts, I have made several of them over the past couple years, and I absolutely love them. I have this one little crate that is from Target Dollar Spot from years ago, and I recycle it by using magnets. I will have that link in my description box if you have never seen any of my truck crate crafts and how to make one for yourself. Now, for my running boards down at the bottom, I did use a Dollar Tree dowel, and I went ahead and painted it black. And also to add some dimension, I used some popsicle sticks to kind of pop out the door a little bit further. I will be painting those purple as well. Then I glued everything down, and this is my final coat of paint. This one is probably the lightest of the purples, and I'm not very opaque with it. I wanted a few of the colors to show through, and then I dry brushed on my raised parts just so it would kind of have a streaky old effect to the painting. Now I've also labeled the bottom part is called the running board, and off to the side, which is over the tires, is called the fender, just in case you hear those words and you're not quite sure what they are. Now, this is probably my favorite part because we are doing a vintage truck craft, adding the Mod Podge first, or you could just add the cinnamon on top of the wet paint, but I always use Mod Podge. And then I add a little bit of cinnamon on certain parts of my truck to add the rust effect and the look overall. And I think it really helps with just kind of the texture and the vibe that I love whenever I'm making a vintage craft. Now, this next section is just the touching up and the adding the highlights and lowlights of the paint or on the truck. I really think it just adds a lot of depth and it just really makes the truck pop. Now, I always like to add my darks, my blacks first, then I go over some of those sections with the black, and then I add even more white of places that I know the sun would be hitting. So on the top sections, on the door frames, all of those parts that stick out, and then I like to add a little bit of white on my black tires because I think that also helps it to pop. And today I'm also participating in the DIY challenge, which is hosted by Heidi Sonboul. So I'll have the playlist in her channel linked in my description box so that you guys can be inspired and watch everyone else in the playlist. Sorry about the extra background noise. I swear my fan always, or my heat always turns on when I'm trying to do voiceovers. But there is my little truck crate. I will have that link linked down below, and I'll try to have it in my cards so you can see how I just add the Dollar Tree magnets and the Jenga blocks, and I can interchange my trucks anytime I want. Now I'm taking these little Christmas ornaments that I cannot remember where I got them from, but I believe someone gave them to me, and I'm wrapping them with Dollar Tree yarn. And this is kind of that burnt orange color, and I just really loved it. And I just wrapped it all the way around my carrots, and I did 2 of them. And then I glued some Dollar Tree greenery up at the top so that it would make it look even more like a carrot. And that's going to go in the back side of my little truck crate. And here is how the vintage truck, and it is so fun. I haven't done purple, and I really love this different take on the truck craft. And if you love all things trucks like me, definitely check my playlist. I actually have a truck playlist of all the different trucks I have painted over the years, and I just really adore this one. I think this one's fun, not just for Easter, but for spring, and it was so fun to make. I hope you guys enjoyed this first one and that you will be inspired to take this little truck craft on yourself. And these next spring crafts, I definitely wanted to use some items that I see all the time at a lot of my Dollar Trees. I grabbed one of these little glass candlesticks and a couple of different birdhouses, and I'm going to go ahead and paint them. Now, I didn't have a light green that I wanted, so I just kind of mixed my own, adding a little bit of green to my white, and then I go ahead and I paint my entire house except for my roof in this really pale green color. Then I take some of my Rust-Oleum chalked paint, which I have used in several of my DIY projects, and I love it. I actually bought it originally for my desk that I did a remodel on, so I'll have that link also in my description. And I just went ahead and painted it with that paint, and I didn't quite do a full opaque look. I didn't want it to be completely white, if that makes sense. And then I put some of my super glue on top, and then added a few drops of my hot glue so I'd have an instant hold, and glued my birdhouse and my candlestick together. And I took my greenery bag, which is just leftover moss from several different bags, but it's originally from the Dollar Tree, and I began hot gluing my moss to the very top so it kind of had that natural look to my house. And I did that on both sides. And definitely, if you're going to use the hot glue, use the silicone little finger protectors, because you will be burning your fingers to death if you didn't have something to protect yourself. Or I have seen several crafters use the little silicone makeup brushes, so that's a really good idea as well. But you just want to make sure, if you do use hot glue instead of super glue or Elmer's glue, you will want to protect your fingers. Now, I also wanted to add a little bit of fun color and depth and contrast, so I took some of my little these aren't skewers, these are the dowels. So I took my dowels and I just glued it to the front and back side of my birdhouse. And I really wanted my birdhouse to have a worn and weathered look to it, so I first started out with my white, and I highlighted quite a bit of it. I wanted the corners, the edge, the bottom section. I just highlighted all over with my white. Then I went back over it with a smaller black brush and kind of started a dabbing effect just on the undersides, just around on the corners, and it just kind of helped that white to pop out even more. And it also gave this birdhouse a weathered look, and I really like how just adding a few layers. You could also add some brown. If you had a brown, you wouldn't have to do such a contrast as black and white, but adding a few different colors and layers to your paint really allow it to elevate the piece a lot. And I even highlighted a few of the corner pieces because I do love the geometric shape of this candlestick. So I just kind of highlighted those sections a little bit with my black. Now, these two birdhouses are going to be similar, but they're going to be different at the same time. So I took a really pale blue color that I had, and it was kind of running out. So I added some water so it became more of a stain, and it was really, really runny, but I really liked this color and I wanted to use what I had left. So I just added that all over my birdhouse, and I did do the roof because I'm going to do a different texture on that. And I went ahead and painted my candlestick in the white, and I'm using a Dollar Tree circle, round, I guess is what this one is called. And this one will be a little bit taller than my other one. So I glued all of those pieces together, and I added my moss to the candlestick at the very bottom to the wooden round. So it's similar to the other one, but it's not the same. And to cover up the bottom part of the wooden round, I originally had thought of adding more moss, but I, of course, love this leather ribbon, so I glued that all the way around and just secured it with a dab of hot glue. Now, to finish off this birdhouse, I did add some skewers, and I even think I used some popsicles, or let's see, toothpicks to the top, and just made a really fun pattern. But I wanted the edges to look complete and finished, so I took this new Dollar Tree ribbon. I've never seen this texture before, so you'll have to let me know if you have seen it before. But I just glued it all the way around, and since it was kind of a natural like jute, almost a ribbon, it bent and kind of shaped to the form of the birdhouse really easily. But word to the wise, it's super thin, y'all. I should have used my little finger protectors, and I had already put them away, and then you know how things get. They get lost in the craft room. So I kind of had to improvise, and I just used my little scissors right there and kind of pushed it down. But it kind of leaked through. But this finishes off that birdhouse perfectly. Now, for this final project, it is so easy, but it is so beautiful how this project turns out. I'm taking one of the Dollar Tree little birdhouses, or not birdhouses, but the little house forms, and we're going to be making a little birdhouse from it. Now, I just popped off the back, but when I did crack the little top side of my house. So I had to kind of re-glue that top part section together, and that wasn't too bad, but word to the wise, just be careful at how hard you are pushing this apart when you're taking the back. We won't need the back side, but you will need to go and sand a little bit because some of the paper was still on. But as I was sanding it, I really liked the texture and the look that sanded but a little bit of paper had on the birdhouse. So I decided to use the back side as my front side of the birdhouse. I hope that makes sense. So I'm going to flip my birdhouse over, and I just went outside, grabbed a branch and cleaned it up, and then I'm going to glue it to the back side of my birdhouse. So this is going to imitate it being in the trees and has a really natural, just fun, whimsical look. And I glued it to all of the edges that I could, secured it as best as I could, let that dry, and then flipped it over. And I grabbed one of the little birds that are in the packages from the Dollar Tree, one that I really liked. It was green and it had some glitter and it was just really pretty. Now, I have seen several of my friends painting these birds. So if you didn't like the color, I believe it was Wendy from White Sparrow Living. She did one. She did one of those little cloushes. Oh, I can never say those words right. Anyways, she painted her bird a kind of pale white color from the same glitter bird. So if you didn't like it, you can paint them. So that is an option. And I took some of my darker moss to kind of create a little nest that my bird is sitting in inside of the little house. And that's it. That project is so easy and so fun. And you could definitely jazz this up any other way you would want, but I really liked the simplicity of it. And I am finished with my mantle for spring and Easter. I really love how it is coming together. All of my little birdhouses and my crosses that I have just previously made. And I really like the impact and the overall look that everything just comes together. Definitely let me know which one was your favorite project. I love talking with you guys in the comments. And that's it for today. See you next time.